Chapter 8, The Paradoxical Era. Nixon was elected president in 1968 with the strategy of floating coalitions and outbidding. To utilize his strategy, he sought reforms, private market mechanisms, development of affirmative action policies, and much more. For the first time, social services were to be provided by funds from the federal government. These services were provided to people near or under the poverty line, which came as a surprise to Democrats and Republicans alike. In Nixon's second term, although it wasn't a full term, he passed the Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, the Rehabilitation Act, and the Child Abuse Prevention Act, all in 1973. Although Nixon was never big on civil rights, he was big on equality. He helped to establish policies to increase employment for women as well as people of color in public agencies. However, Nixon cut social spending when he saw inflation begin to soar. He quickly resigned from presidency, leaving Ford to succeed. Although Ford wasn't president for long, he was able to pass the Education for All Handicapped Children Act in 1975. Carter was elected in 1976. Coming into office, he was bombarded by a massive deficit, high rates of inflation, increasing levels of social spending, and a gas crisis with the Middle Eastern countries. He was not ready to deal with these serious political and economic issues. Carter had no interest in domestic legislation. Instead, he created a three-tiered scheme for social welfare which could cut social services to provide a national income for the poor and create 10.4 million public service jobs. But Senate shut down the idea. The word abortion was not in Carter's vocabulary. He was extremely against the idea, and it became obvious to the public when the number of federally funded abortions went from 275,000 to 1,250 in just 2 years. Policy change in the 70s constituted a hidden spending in American policy. Non-defense spending grew a great amount, and 2/3 of the domestic budget went to social insurance and means-tested social programs, which also grew in cost. Social spending was hidden from the U.S. citizens because of the conservative speech of the presidents. Many vulnerable populations, such as women, were oppressed. They formed organizations redressing job discrimination, reforming state laws of rape, and advocating for equal pay. Attorneys developed litigation for some of the outgroups who were a part of the vulnerable populations. Some of these populations included immigrants, the LGBT community, and people with physical and developmental.
Created using Powtoon.